Welcome to another episode of the State of African Agriculture. Today we have Desmond Koney. He's the founder and CEO of Complete Farmer based in Ghana. Complete Farmer is Ghana's leading Agritech company that provides cutting edge technology farming protocols and innovations with a unique business model and logistics to revolutionize farming. They are committed to creating an end to end digital agricultural value chain that improves efficiency and alters the established order of the broken nature of the value chain. We will be discussing how technology is transforming African food systems. Join us. Okay. Desmond, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing as well?
I'm great. And I'm guessing, are you in Ghana right now?
Yeah, I'm in Accra right now.
Oh, impressive. And I'm hoping that you're going to other African countries.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Okay. Good to hear. So let's get into it. Complete Farmer supports over 7,200 acres of total production and is known as an end-to-end digital platform focusing on all segments of the agricultural value chain with partnership. It's also known as the Alibaba of agriculture. So can you tell me more about Complete Farmer, the journey, how you started, more of the digital operations, market, and why you're known as the Alibaba of agriculture?
Okay, thank you very much. I think Complete Farmer, as an extension to my story, I think I grew up, my dad was a smallholder farmer. And so growing up, I really saw the difficulty that was in farming. So studied hard, became a mechanical engineer. So my background really is in mechanical engineering, to be specific, production engineering. Like things like building factory floors, timing conveyor belt systems, building production plants, basically. So the discipline makes you really think about processes and how to make things efficient. I think I thought to myself, what if I can imagine a farm to be a factory and get a farm to produce and be more precise and efficient. So really that was what we were solving for. And it was in a way trying to draw from the experiences we've had to be able to come up with a production model for a farm. So Complete Farmer really started by wanting to build a farm to operate like a factory. So we've tried a lot of pivots. And then we also tried this crowdfunding model where we thought, okay, to really give financing to farmers, we could crowdfund and then finance farmers. What we realized with that was that there was a need for control. If I were giving people's money to smallholder farmers, I should be able to control their outputs, right? And we basically wanted to come up with a model that really help control that output. We pivoted for that model from some time back, and we started doing things differently compared to what other crowdfunding platforms were doing back then. What we really did was we gave the user a fair idea of the risk and the farmer they were going to invest into. They decide which farmer to invest with based on the records or the history of this farmer. But the interesting thing was at the end of production, they determined who to sell to. And we built a very transparent system where there's an auditor who audits the farm and you get the audit report. So even if you're not in Ghana, you are able to still sell to a buyer and the buyer pays you directly as well. Because I think the crowdfunding space created this impression that farming was a security. And people were investing into farming as though it was a security. But farming, like I think anyone who goes into farming needs to acknowledge the risks that are involved and be able to put some premium on that. So that's why we started doing things differently, where we realized that you can't make farming a financial product. Farming is more of a project. It's a project by project based approach. And you need to get the needed expertise to be able to farm very well. So on our platform, we're doing things a bit different. Users could sell to their buyers. They could decide which farmer to fund by getting a history or some data on the farmer to be able to finance them.
So are you telling me that if I go on Complete Farmer platform, I can literally pick what farmer I want to work with? So based on that, I see the farmer's history, 1 year, 2 year, how the farmer has been successful in terms of productivity, which is very important. And then once the farmer is done harvesting, I can decide who to sell to. Then whoever buys from me pays me directly, not Complete Farmer. Can you expatiate on that?
So I think what most crowdfunding platforms do is they create, from a product perspective, they create this curtain. So people do not see the farmers, people do not see the buyers. And so people do not connect that this is a transaction that needs to happen, and there are risks on both sides of the transaction. And so you could possibly lose your money. So what most people think of when it comes to crowd farming is, I've given my money to XYZ, and XYZ needs to pay me back at a certain percentage. But then behind the curtains, whoever this company is, isn't really in control of the production. The farmer is deciding what fertilizers to apply. He's deciding what seeds to use. And even if you tell them or you give them advice, he, at the end of the day, has to make that decision by themselves. So that was one of the biggest challenges we saw from a product perspective, why that model wasn't working. And so what we did was try to collect as much data on farmers and what they do. And then year after year, we keep updating this data. Now, this data is somehow supposed to help us build a credit profile. Which farmer can you trust with your money? Which farmer are you able to, has been through the process? Maybe he's grown the crop for several times. You can validate his experience. He's done some soil tests, so you know his soil is even right for the crop you want to grow before you even invest in that particular farmer. So we try to give you as much data to help you appreciate and assess the risk. And so what we started doing on our platform was to really educate people about what really farming was, and not really make it as, oh, give me $1,000, I'll give you $1,300 back, without knowing how that $1,300 come about. So we started doing a lot of education to get people to understand how farming is done and what really goes behind it. It's not something where you put your money in and you go to sleep as well. And then at the end of the production too, with buyers, there are buyers that are very credible, and this is basically commodity trading. There are buyers that are buying at a certain price. So if someone is promising you a certain return, you need to know what price this person is going to even sell the input for. Does the buyer have a track record of paying on time? So a lot of the problems that most of the crowdfunding face with delayed payments and stuff like that is only because most of these things are really not being communicated to the user. So users really need to understand. And I think that's what made us think of building transparency. How do we give users that control? And how do we give them that transparency so that even no matter where they are sure of what's going on the farm, they are sure of what's going on in the markets, and they can be able to make their own decisions on how their money works for them.
I want to go back a little bit. So when I think about this, I think of a marketplace. I think Alibaba, that's what I'm saying. But is there some kind of, how do I get the trust that says when the buyer pays me, how does Complete Farmer ensure that happens? How can I ensure that there's some kind of credibility with the platform?
So what we do is, before we even list the crops and ask farmers to start farming, we would have had to secure a contract with the buyer. And so that is the first level of security. Now, the second level of, let me go back. The first level of security is the due diligence on the buyer. So before we accept any buyer's orders, we would have to have done a due diligence. We would have asked them for previous suppliers that have supplied to them to get some references from them. We would have asked for their audited accounts. We would have asked for their bank statements and things like that, their tax reports. So we try to, in as much as possible, make sure that the buyer has the liquidity to be able to go into that trade for in the first place. Now, the second level of security is then the contract. So we sign an international contract, which can be upheld in different countries of jurisdiction. So whether I'm exporting or I'm selling to the local market, if the buyer should default on this contract, there'll be legal implications for this buyer. Then the third level of security is then the guarantee, what we call the guarantee of offtake. The guarantee of offtake is before the farmers even harvest, this buyer should have placed the letter of credit as payment, and we should have received the letter of payment document, or he or she would have paid into an escrow account. And we would confirm that before even harvesting is done, to make them available on the platform for people to be able to select. So those are the ways we are able to ensure that we are actually selling to credible buyers, and we can avoid most of the nuances when it comes to the market and payments as well.
And I like this because, when it comes to crowdfunding, there's a lot of skepticism about it. A lot of people have gotten burned. Yeah. So this is new, this is the marketplace, but what is also important is what you're getting into. So you are part of the journey. So I like that. Let's go back to some of the challenges that we have in the agriculture sector. And when we're talking about some of the challenges, we're talking about the access to finance, the market, crop diseases, low yields, even like production itself. So how has Complete Farmer been able to help use your platform to solve some of these issues?
So at Complete Farmer, we are very data heavy. The first challenge with agriculture in Africa, I would say, is the availability of data. I think with our pivots and our involvement in agriculture from the beginning, what we know is the market has a particular specification. So if you are selling soybeans to Nestle, Nestle has a quality of soybean they are looking for. They have some nutritional contents they would want you to meet, some oil content and purity content you need to meet. Now, this data is available. Now, the farmer may not even have access to this data in the first place. Even though the farmer knows how to grow soybeans, they don't know that they have to grow soybeans to meet this quality. So that knowledge is not transferred to the farmer. Then even if it were to be transferred to the farmer doesn't know how to go about their production to be able to meet that specifications. Now, even if he can also go around that and get to figure that out, he will now need to figure out where to get the fertilizers to be able to grow to meet that specifications, where to get the inputs, how to construct the supply chain to ensure that this input gets to them on time and the produce also gets to the buyer at the due time that is due. And also even for like a lot of fertilizer producers, they also don't know what data most of the fertilizers we have in Africa are general purpose. These are standard NPK fertilizers. Because there's no data on how our soils are so that we can customize fertilizers for optimum plant growth. When it comes to farm tools, there are some commodities in the African value chain that are very under-mechanized because there's no data for engineers to be able to know how to design this equipment. So it's not like we can't even build our own tools. It's just that the data to now start thinking of a solution. Do I know what the planting distance of X crop is to be able to design a farm implement to apply this on the field? So the first thing is data before even infrastructure and then capital. So I think that the initial challenge we saw was that data problem, and really invested in being able to collect a lot of this data across the value chain. Now, once the data problem is solved, the next problem to be solved is infrastructure. So now that we know everything that goes on in the value chain, how do we use this to build the tools? We always say government has to provide irrigation. How do we know which lands in the country needs to be irrigated? Is that data readily available? Or how do we know which roads to build and to where? Do we know where the farmers growing cashew nuts? are most concentrated, to be able to know how to site a factory there. So I think the first layer is the data, and then you come up to the infrastructure. The infrastructure bit is pretty straightforward, but it requires capital then to be able to get that. So what we are doing now is to kind of use the data that we are collecting to give this data to the stakeholders. So with the banks need to also see which farmers are credible, which farmer has been doing this over time, and be able to provide financing for that particular farmer. So we want to kind of use the data to create a credit score where banks can be able to know which farmer is bankable and which farmer's project is bankable, which buyer can we trade, can we finance their trade as well. The insurance companies also use this data to be able to assess the risk of what's going on the farms as well. So I think being able to solve for that helps solve the infrastructure problem and also helps solve the capital problem as well.
You've done amazing using data to help capture all this problem, but also help try to find a solution for it. So I hope that other people can replicate that, and also maybe you can bring that to other parts of Africa. But let's go into, I know you're launching an advanced version of 2 of your models. It's called the grower buyer model in a couple of weeks. Can you tell us more about it, and how is it different from your regular model?
Okay. So with the grower model, what we are seeking to achieve is to give people more control, more transparency, and make the decisions on their farm in an easy interface. So this is a marketplace. The platform still remains a marketplace, but this time anyone at all can own a farm and actually sell to a real buyer. So on the new platform, as a grower, so what we are trying to achieve is to make what Uber has done for cab driving. Anyone at all owning a car can become an Uber driver if they have a driver's license. What we are trying to do is to make anyone at all a farm owner. So you can come to the platform, lease your own land. We vetted lands that, and we've checked for the documentation that are listed. So you can lease your own land, you can hire your own farm manager. And so on the platform, you can see the profiles of farm managers that have been trained and what their experience is, hire your own farm manager and start farming. And you can just connect this platform to your bank accounts and schedule payments to pay your farm manager, pay the vendors yourself. You can buy your own inputs also on the platform for your farm manager. So we have vendors on the platform, some of the big fertilizer companies who will deliver the inputs straight to your farm, and you can track all of this as well. You are able to also track the work progress on your farm. So we've integrated with satellite imagery where you see what's going on the farm. We collect data for you to know how well your crops are doing, how is your farm progress. Are you on schedule? Are you behind schedule? What the inventory is, the fertilizer that you bought, is it still in place? Or someone has stolen your fertilizer, and who can be held accountable for that? So all of this has been built into a platform to make farm management really easy. And we are building the platform for existing farmers can use this platform to manage their existing farm and assess real demands. But also individuals anywhere in the world should be able to own farms in Ghana. So you can lease land, pay for the lease and own the farm, own the production. Now, Complete Farmer's role will be to supervise this whole process. With the protocols and the data that we've collected, before you start your farm, we would have done some soil analysis. And so we will be able to let you know what is the best fertilizers you need for your farm and tell you where to get them on the platform. And so all these decisions have been made very simple. All you have to do is a few steps. At the end of the production, your Complete Farmer comes to pick up your produce, and then you get paid right then and there into your bank account connected to your account. So this is a more a platform that allows people to have more control in how the farming goes. For the buyer side, it's also a supply chain management platform for buyers. So buyers can place their orders. We do the due diligence of buyers. They place their orders and give us the specifications. And the buyers also monitor what the farmers growing for them are doing. So we give them reports on the chemicals you are using. For some buyers, it's very important. It's to be able to trace the kind of commodities that they are buying. So we give they monitor the entire process as well from their end. But at the end of the production, they can build a supply chain to your farm. So there are also vendors on the platform where they can ask to come. So they can say, okay, logistic company X should take the goods from your farm to the port. And then freight forwarder B should ship the produce to our warehouse. So it makes it very easy if you were a commodity buyer to basically buy anywhere in Africa as well, and have a pool of people growing food exclusively for your offtake. So you don't have to compete with your competitors for the same supplier as well. So that's the buyer platform, and it's been quite interesting getting to it. But these two platforms have been I would say, has been the learning, the apex of the learning we've had from our journey. And a lot of that has gone into building this product and knowing how to simplify and digitize the entire value chain end to end.
Thank you. I like that you're working with all the partners. So every different partner, so everybody's on the platform, you can link them. But what I think is also important, especially for the people in the diaspora, when you mostly hear about people that send money home to invest in farming and it's gone. So this time you can actually monitor it, see what's going on. And then if you're trying to buy in terms of trade, you can see exactly what you need, track it, monitor it. So it's an amazing idea. Great job that you're doing, Complete Farmer. Great job to you and your team. One of the key things that we are one of the leading ag tech companies in Africa. And one thing that you've been able to do is been able to raise funds. So there are a lot of people that are using tech to transform the food space. What are what advice do you give startups that are looking to raise funds in the ag tech space?
Okay, so I think for most startups, especially when you are starting with an idea, there is an infrastructure gap you need to build before you even start your business. And so what I mean by that is, depending on what you want to build, I could have the idea to say, I want to build a spaceship, right? But then I would have to build a factory first to be able to build a spaceship. Now, fundraising is supposed to help you close this gap. Oftentimes, the mistake founders make when starting is, because it's an idea, it's very difficult to know the cost of what it will take for you to bridge your infrastructure gap. And because it's a learning process, the more you learn, the more the gap you thought was shorter will be wider, or the more the wider gap will be shorter. So I think, first of all, really being able to calculate and know how much, based on your strategy, it will cost you to get that infrastructure gap closed is very necessary for you to start with. So you have a lot of startups who start building and they realize that, okay, we have to build infrastructure. So if you take, for example, Uber in Africa, Uber doesn't, a lot of people are paying cash. If you're a passenger, you could pay cash to Uber. The driver chooses not to pay Uber back their commission. And so if I were owning the Uber company, I would have to build a payment system. And so for a lot of the new ideas coming up, they have to build their own infrastructure. So they have to invest in building their distribution network, building their supply chain, their input network. And most often, a lot of the companies will run out of cash and really feed global demands. So you can think of the conflicts that you like, or the big beans that you like buying, and think of you growing the beans that this company uses to make those products for you. So that's where we really want to get to in the next 5 years. We are quite ambitious. I think the amount of work that needs to be done is quite it's a lot. But I think we are very much motivated by the level of clarity we have on how to get there. So that's what keeps us moving. To be able to be part of this revolution and be the next complete farmer, you can just go to completefarmer.com and then you just create an account, and that's it. You can start your farming journey and be able to sell to real buyers.
Thank you very much, Desmond. I wish Complete Farmer more success, and it was interesting talking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wandy.